Will Mike Maher have an acceptable answer for what his favorite baseball movie of all time is? That is coming up in the Wednesday, September 8th version of Leading Off. It's a Brennan Tuma day, a Mike Maher day, a Peanuts and the Cracker Jacks day. How are we doing this morning, Mike?
It's also a Wednesday, despite the live stream saying that it's Tuesday.
Yeah, so we can't bat 1,000 with everything. We have our banners up that actually say Brennan Tuma and Mike Maher. So we're trying to go like 2 for 3 each day, I think.
That's true. That's a good percentage. Our producer just hates us so much. It's got to be Joe breaking in and just making sure everything's not perfect while he's out, right?
Yeah, that's probably what's going on. He's upset that he is still trailing in the home run leaderboards. But Mike, I'm curious, after Dan and I talked a little bit yesterday, there was a lot of comments going on from the Peanuts and Cracker Jacks about baseball movies, a topic that I can talk about for maybe one day, an hour-long podcast even. But where would you start when you think of your favorites?
So I thought of this last night and was just kind of like typing up a list on my phone, and I tried to narrow it down to like a top 5, but I had to make it 7. And I feel like I'm going to have probably a couple movies that other people either don't like or don't have anywhere near their top 5. So I'll rattle them off real quick. Is that all right?
Yeah, of course.
All right. So at the bottom, I had to include Major League. It's not at the top for me, but it's just such a classic. It's such a great comedy. And then I had to include Sandlot. Again, classic, despite, it's lower on the list for me because of all the Yankees stuff. So that kind of drops it down. Whereas otherwise I would have it higher. Rookie of the Year. Incredibly underrated movie, one of my favorites. I also use Chet Steadman and Phil Brickman as fake names all the time, characters from that movie. Number 4, a little bit outside the box, For Love of the Game. Very underrated movie. It's a little bit of a romance, which is, probably drops it down for some people, but fantastic baseball movie, if you ask me. Number 3, Fever Pitch. Probably going to upset a lot of people with that one, but Fever Pitch is great. And there's, the Red Sox. It's a magical season, perfect timing, 2004. Number 2, Moneyball. That's probably going to be on everyone's list. And then number 1 for me, Cobb.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot to digest there. I have so many thoughts. I am going to text Dan every day until he gives us the green light for this off-season topic. If you disagree with Mike's favorite baseball movies, make sure to let him know on Twitter at Mike Maher. On to the baseball from Tuesday night. The number 1 story, I think, was Blake Snell, 7 innings, 1 hit, 2 earned runs, 11 more strikeouts. In 7 starts since the beginning of August, he has a 1.85 ERA. That's backed up by a 2.86 xFIP, 65 strikeouts in 43 and 2/3 innings. It's clear that he made a pitch mix change. The changeup before August, he was using it 14.5% of the time. Since then, 0.7% of the time. I love when we can pinpoint the reason why a player is either struggling or performing well. This seems obvious to me. Blake Snell is must start rest of the way.
Do you know the real reason why he turned things around?
Because probably something to do with you either dropped him or traded him away, anything
traded
like that.
Him. I traded him away. I traded him away in a keeper league. And I honestly I'm not upset about it because it's like I traded him in a keeper league. And I was like, I just can't emotionally do this anymore and keep starting him. And it was a keeper league. I think I sent him and Dylan Carlson for Musgrove, which I'm fine with that trade.
Okay, yeah. I think the thing with Snell too is like if someone did drop him or trade him away, like you really shouldn't feel bad. In my like big competitive home league, which is like the league I put the most effort in, like he was on the waivers for a couple weeks, but there was nothing to suggest that this was coming. Like once that first start happened, I guess you could have tried to notice the changeup usage and then gone from there. But it became obvious after a couple. But for most of the season, like he didn't deserve to be started, let alone rostered in most leagues, I think. So definitely a little bittersweet if you did let him go. But again, I think this was, you couldn't see it coming.
Yeah, especially because he was just going like 5 innings every start and some were good, some were bad. And I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I still think he's going to be good, but I'm not, I had so many players that I was like holding on to and I was like, I can't hold on to everybody. I got to try and make a move here, especially in a keeper league where I was like, I can't go into next year and do this again.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about 2022 value. It's going to be curious to see where he winds up. Also, pitching performance from Monday night. Aaron Savali returned from his shoulder injury, 4 2/3 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. I like this start because it was 4 2/3 innings and he's been out a while. So this gives me confidence to use him next time out. If Savali was dropped and he's still somehow out there, I think he's going to be perfectly usable rest of the way. A Cleveland pitcher.
Yeah. And you always have to buy those Cleveland pitchers when you can. Whenever they're available, buy them up.
Yeah, and finally, Albert Pujols homered in his return to St. Louis. Not much fancy takeaway, but that was just a cool moment. He actually has a 111 WRC plus. He's been 11% better than league average since winding up with the Dodgers. A couple negatives, and we have some injury notes. Garrett Cole left Tuesday start with hamstring tightness. As of now, there's no MRI scheduled. We should have more information on this, obviously, by the time managers need to make their lineups for next week.
Yeah, and the Yankees downplayed it pretty much immediately. They said it was just feeling tight and they didn't want it to get any worse, so they pulled him. So it sounds like it's not a major issue, but we'll see. Maybe he misses one start. Maybe he doesn't miss any time at all.
Yeah, it sucks if you had him this week and, this is your big playoff week. That's obviously unfortunate. Also unfortunate, a couple players without timetables to return. Angels manager Joe Madden said that there's no update for a possible Mike Trout return. The writing's on the wall. I know Mike's going to have a comment in a sec, but he probably won't return. Tim Anderson of the White Sox, Tony La Russa also said he's without a timetable right now, but that's more so due to the White Sox being one of the best teams in the American League, and they just want to rest him till he's 100% and ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. The White Sox are just kind of resting everyone, whereas the Angels have no reason to play Mike Trout, and this is kind of what a lot of us have assumed was coming for a while now. And if you listen to the kickoff podcast with Dan, he just talked about how troublesome calf injuries can be.
Yes, good plug for the kickoff for you fantasy football folks. The kickoff is a show style similar to old school leading off. It's just 15-ish minutes, and you can find it on Fantasy Pros, the kickoff feed on Spotify, Apple Pods. I wrote the little blurb for Fantasy Pros on Trout this morning, and I said that, if you have an IL spot, just keep him rostered, but if it's crunch time, it feels weird to drop Mike Trout, but it's like we're running out of time. So, and it doesn't seem like he's coming back. So,
yeah. And I don't have any shares of Trout in straight up redraft. I only have him in keeper league. So luckily I'm not in that position, but yeah, I think especially if you're like head to head playoffs right now, like you just, if you need the roster spot, you just got to move on.
Yes, JP34 commenting that on the kickoff. Dan said that I invented the hula hoop. Again, that's
true.
Some old school leading off jokes from when Dan would make up jobs for me at 1 a.m. or whenever we were recording. Someone who has been hurt for a while, but who might come back, Clayton Kershaw allowed 2 earned runs in 3 innings in a rehab start for AAA Oklahoma City on Tuesday night. It does seem like the Dodgers had said going into this one that if all goes well, he might pitch even on Sunday. So that is really good news. There's kind of been this, group of star pitchers, Kershaw, DeGrom, Bieber. We haven't known, what's going to happen with all of them, but Kershaw seems to be the one who's like definitely coming back. Keep him rostered. Do not drop him.
And again, for a competitive team, unlike a situation with the Angels, that's always something you have to consider around this time of year, right? Like, is the team competing until they have something to play for? And there's kind of like 3 different ways you can go. There's the Angels who are just out of it and have no reason. There's the White Sox who are just kind of cruising, and so they can be patient. The Dodgers are in a division race right now, and it's tight. So they're going to get him back as soon as they can.
That's a great point by Mike. When you're thinking through these injuries on your own, that is definitely something to keep in mind. Speaking about DeGrom, I don't even know what exactly this update was from the Mets. They said he had a partially torn UCL, but it's just a bruise and now it's fine. We probably don't see him this year again, but this is going to be a little worrisome going into next year.
Yeah, none of the words in their update made a lot of sense when all put together. They were like, it was like a torn UCL, but it repaired itself. He's fine now. And I was like, I don't know if that's how that works or how comfortable I would feel about that.
For a while, they've just been saying it's inflammation for DeGrom, but this has been a long time for just inflammation. So it would make sense, that there might be something more going on, and it would make sense that the Mets wouldn't necessarily have the best handle on everything. George Springer and Keibert Ruiz both remain sidelined due to their knee injuries on Tuesday. Jesse Winker had a minor setback from his intercostal strain. It seems like he's going to be delayed a tiny bit more, but that's one, like we were just talking about, the Reds are kind of fighting for a playoff spot, so they do have incentive to bring back Winker. Kike Hernandez returned from the COVID IL last night for the Red Sox. It sounds like Xander Bogaerts could be back on Friday. They've kind of already said that Kike is going to be the primary center fielder, which puts, with all the defensive alignments and everything, it puts Bobby Dahlbeck and Alex Verdugo actually in a bit of a platoon. We're going to get to Dahlbeck later. He hit 2 more home runs last night coming off the bench. Does this lower your enthusiasm for any of these guys involved, Dahlbeck, Verdugo, Schwarber, or do we just need to see how this plays out?
I think we need to see, but I think, as fun as Bobby Dahlbeck has been the last few weeks, I think, most of us are just kind of, have like tempered expectations. Like we saw him struggle for so long, and then we saw him kind of turn things around, but everyone's a little worried, are we going to continue to see this? And, it sounds like the Red Sox probably have similar thinking. Like we're just going to keep continuing to use him in situations where it makes sense, like versus lefties. Like I have him, I think, in the lineup builders for tonight because they're facing a lefty. He's probably going to be in the lineup. And, that's when he usually, tends to hit a couple home runs. And so I think they're probably going to find him on the bench. I would also not be surprised to see some more moving parts, and maybe Dahlbeck moves over to third base every now and then, with like maybe Devers gets a day at DH because Devers has not been a very good third baseman this year. I don't know that Dahlbeck is much better, but he at least has played over there, and they've put him over there a few times recently. So we'll have to see, but not quite the logjam the Yankees had, because a lot of these guys are struggling or getting COVID or all kinds of things. But it'll be interesting to see.
You and I definitely have some disagreements over Devers' defense at third base. That's something we're going to fight about off air.
Just go to Baseball Reference and sort by errors. You'll see them.
Some breaking news from this morning. Jeff Passan of ESPN reports that the Rays are calling up Josh Lowe, one of their top minor leaguers from AAA. He has been hitting .282 with a .909 OPS, 21 homers. He's a perfect 24 for 24 in stolen bases. This is the younger brother of Nate Lowe, who used to be on the Rays. Josh is more known for his outfield defense and speed, but the hitting has come along this year. It doesn't sound like he might be up long, so this isn't an add in redraft leagues, but it's still, one of the best teams in baseball is adding reinforcements.
Yeah, and I've had a couple shares of Josh Lowe in Dynasty for a while now, and like every time I was like in a roster crunch, I would go to like drop him, and because he's like not like the most well-known prospect, but he's always someone I kind of liked, and every time I would think about dropping him, I would go look at his numbers, and I was like, no, I'm going to hold on to this guy. It's like 18 home runs, 30 steals in 2019 or something like that. And I was like, I'm going to hold on to this because, anytime you can find, especially now, like it's so hard to find steals, and it's especially hard to find steals without all the other categories being empty. And so, like you said, I don't know. Jeff Passan said he was coming up, but then immediately said, like, he might not be up for long, but we'll see. They could certainly use him. It's not like they're hurting. So
yeah, the combo of the rookies and it being the Rays and everything like that. I am personally have not added him anywhere, but in deeper leagues, if you're just desperate for a spark, it could make sense. Comment here from Star Platinum. I cut Ian Happ and Dahlbeck. I've seen some other people do this, refer to Bobby Dahlbeck as Dahlbeck, Brian Dahlbeck, like another old school Red Sox player from the early 2000s before I was born.
Before you were born. I used to love Brian Dahlbeck. That guy was awesome.
Some closer news. Alex Colomé recorded his 13th save. He's thrown 7 straight scoreless appearances. It seems like he's the guy for the Twins. Michael Givens got his 6th save for the Reds. And Chris Stratton on the Pirates vultured a save from David Bednar just when we thought David Bednar was going to be the guy there. Closer, carousel, we're kind of, going all over here in September. Colomé, I think, is a guy, and I still like Bednar on the Pirates. I don't Givens, like we're just rolling dice with some of these guys and the Mariners guys and the Cardinals guys and everyone we've been talking about recently.
Yeah, I have been for a long time, and it's been coming up snake eyes a lot for me in terms of rolling out guys and hoping for the best. But it's like, I don't know. I don't know some of these teams that, I don't know that they know. And I get a ton of questions on Twitter, and closers are definitely not my specialty. That's more something that you focus on and spend a lot of time on. I'm in a lot more saves and holds leagues, so it's not as big of a concern for me, but I am in a few saves only leagues, and I'm wrong often on who's going to get saves.
Yeah. So closers in September I feel like April and September are like the most wild time for closers, and things kind of, even out a bit over the summer. But once you get over the hump of the trade deadline, and then when teams start shutting guys down, it definitely gets strange. I was supposed to go to the beach tomorrow. Looks like it's going to rain here in Boston, 100% chance. I was looking for one final getaway, clear the head ahead of fantasy football season and everything. That's not going to happen, but I am still going to make sure I trim and groom. And to do that, you want to use the Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped. A new multifunction on-off switch can engage travel lock, created for people who like to travel, and looks-wise, it's sleek with a two-tone metal and gloss finish. Even features a hot foil stamp black chrome Manscaped logo. Show that mower off loud and proud. That's a Joe Pisapia note. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code leading off at manscaped.com. Again, that is 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and using the code leading off.
Perfect.
Some pitching standouts from Tuesday night. Mike's boy, Packy Naughton, 5 Ks and 5 scoreless against the Padres. Would you add Packy Naughton?
Yeah, I already did. No, just no. Unless we're building like an NBA fantasy team and he's like a scrappy point guard from the 90s, I'm not adding him.
Just a fun note there. Wade Miley bounced back from a disastrous start. 7 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 8-0 K to walks. He had 21 string strikes against the Cubs, who have been red hot recently. Had to give Wade Miley a shout out when Mike Maher's on.
That's right. I've been all in on Wade Miley all year after being all out on him the rest of his entire career.
Yeah, he is just like the most screaming, like, I want nothing to do with him in 2022.
Yeah, I probably won't either, but this year I'm loving it.
Jake Odorizzi, 5 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, 3 strikeouts, a little bit pedestrian, but he has been good lately. And I just wanted to note he gets the Rangers and the Diamondbacks in a 2-start week next week. So he is someone I am interested in using for playoff matchups. Logan Webb in Colorado, 7 innings, 9 hits. Again, sometimes pitchers give up a lot of hits in cores. 3 runs, 6 strikeouts. He has just been amazing. Zach Allen, 6 2/3, 3 runs, 8 strikeouts against the Rangers. Do you think Gallen is back in the circle of trust?
Not in the circle of trust, but the circle of I will start him if I have to.
That makes sense. He has
that
been
circle.
It's
a bigger circle.
Yeah, it feels like it could implode. I still don't feel like I'm ever going to get a dominant performance from him, but right. He's been like usable enough, and he still has that name value. So
yeah, I was so in on him early this season too. So it was very disappointing early when he struggled and got hurt and everything. And then now it's more encouraging that he's coming back pitching well. I am still concerned about next year. Not to, I know we're talking about this year, but I'm concerned about next year, and I probably won't have many shares.
Yeah, this has been turning into the 2022 fantasy baseball podcast, but it's just taking place here in September.
Yeah, whenever they let us in control, we have to sneak it into more dynasty keeper stuff.
Oh yeah, 100%. We're running the ship right now. 2 final pitching standouts. Steven Matz, 6 innings of 1-run ball against the Yankees. He's been really good since August, so he's someone to consider. And then Eric Lauer, 7 innings of shutout baseball against the Phillies. It looks like, Mike, that he's been a lot better in the second half? ?
Yeah, he I've been just looking at him for quick grades, because I have to grade all the pitchers and stuff, and I keep looking at some of these Brewers pitchers, and I want to give him a really low grade, and then I look at their numbers and I was like, wow, he's been a lot better than I would have expected. When I want to give Eric Lauer a 0 for the week and not encourage anyone to start him, but then you look at the ERA, it's down to 3.18. In the second half, 2.25 ERA, and what his numbers would be even better, but he had just an awful June where he had a 6.55 ERA, but his ERA the rest of in every it splits across every other month are great. And so, not a huge strikeout guy, but he's almost about a strikeout per inning, and he faces Detroit in his next start. And so if you're kind of desperate or needy for pitching, he's someone who could be available in a lot of leagues. I didn't look up his roster percentage, but I can't imagine it's too high.
Definitely can't be Dan Harris, if you're listening, Wonky Penguin gave us the okay and said we can talk about anything we want. So we are going to go with that ruling. A lot of double dongs on Tuesday night. Nelson Cruz, Mike Zunino, Alejandro Kirk, Bobby Dahlbeck, Pete Alonso, and Justin Turner. Which of these hitters who hit 2 homers on Tuesday night caught your eye, Mike?
Well, the first two that caught my eye are because of the perfect transition to go from Wonky Penguin to talking about catchers, and 2 of those people are catchers. And, she loves to call catchers or her home run calls. Nelson Cruz, he's finally, he hasn't been great since joining the Rays, but, he's just someone you just have to, I think we talked about him a couple weeks ago, just put him in your lineup. You're going to get your home runs, and that's what you got him for anyway. So don't try to get cute. Justin Turner is someone we'll get to when we get to the home run calls, because one of our leaders got 2 home runs from Justin Turner last night. And basically, yeah, this is a lot. Dahlbeck we already talked about. Alonso, he's been another one who's been kind of all over the place this year, but yeah.
Yeah, Zunino, I didn't realize. I think he's up to 28 now. He's been so good. The Rays have the best offense in baseball. It just feels so weird to say that, and their starting pitching has really been quite shaky actually. So it's not the typical Rays team we're used to seeing. We've talked about Dahlbeck already. He is swinging and missing a lot less recently. I'm curious, skeptical if that can continue, but for as long as it's happening, let's ride it. And then Alejandro Kirk is, I think, the one. There might be some actionable advice here. Look, if you don't have one of the top catchers, Kirk's kind of hot right now. He had another 3-hit game before this one, and he's on the Blue Jays, and that offense definitely has the potential to go nuts down the stretch. He has always been known for his bat in the minors.
Yep.
Ozzie Albies homered for the 4th straight game, and Whit Merrifield stole his 39th base, so that hurts Dan Harris's attempt to get Adalberto Mondesi into the stolen base lead.
It does continue to back up his Whit Merrifield versus Rafael Devers battle with Waffles in Discord, though.
Wonky Penguin asked if we would prefer Eric Lauer or Tanner Houck rest of season.
That's a tough one. It would probably be matchup based for me. It would be hard for me to pull the trigger on either one rest of the season. I really like Tanner Houck, but he's only been going like 4 or 5 innings. Strikeout numbers are pretty good. He's got that good slider. But it's just hard to, without like looking at the schedule like way in advance, like if Lauer has a 2-start week against like, the Pirates and the Diamondbacks, and Tanner Houck is going up against the Rays and the Yankees, I want Lauer. So it's more matchup based for me. You're probably going to get more strikeouts from Houck, but Lauer might be the safer pick at this point.
Yeah, I just can't go recommend Lauer over Houck, who's going to get so many more swinging strikes, which is often what I go by in my pitchers. Some duds from Tuesday. Mike, how do we feel about Eduardo Rodriguez?
Gross. I feel gross about Eduardo Rodriguez. And he's just like, we've been talking about him, it feels like all year. Joe and Dan were talking about him earlier in the year. Expected numbers have been better than his actual numbers all year. But it's September. Those expected numbers don't matter anymore. His real numbers matter. And I think Dan said the other day, he's just starting him every time and like hoping for the best. Again, he faced the Rays. It's kind of, if it was like the Pirates, you'd feel better about that matchup growing in. But like this is the potential, and like in head-to-head playoffs, this can lose you a week. A start like this, and so it's really hard to trust him right now. So, like Dan was saying, maybe in Roto you just continue to ride him, but if it's head-to-head, I can't trust Erod right now.
Here's the thing. I do agree with you. We're getting to the point where it's got to matter. Eduardo does have 2 starts next week against the Orioles and the Mariners. That to me is enough, combined with, the strong xFIP and the underlying numbers, that both him and Aaron Nola kind of get bunched together. Nola also pitched again last night. He was fine, 3 innings and 5 runs. But both those guys, like the expected stats are so much stronger than the actual results. And it's been so frustrating. I am willing to go down with the ship on both of them, especially with Erod having that nice 2-start week next week. And I'm going to be in on both of them in 2022. Again, just kind of banking on some larger sample size regression to the mean.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely prefer Nola more. And I agree. I will probably have a lot of shares of both of them next year, just because Erod is essentially going to be free in drafts next year because of how bad his final numbers are going to be. And Nola is going to be significantly cheaper than he was this year.
The final dud, Jackson Kowar, 6 innings, 6 runs, 7 strikeouts. I was recommending him as a streamer. It did not work out, obviously, but I do want to note from the 3rd inning on, he was a lot better, retiring 12 of his past 14, and the swinging strike rate was really good. So a mixed bag, but someone to monitor. Mike, we are up to 1,076 homers, if I am reading this correctly, and we have reached the 30 homer plateau for an individual peanut and cracker jack.
You are reading it correctly, and I did update all 3 of the spreadsheets correctly today, so no miscues like yesterday. So we have a new leader. Randy, I don't think had called a home run in a week or so, and so the top of the leaderboard was kind of getting crowded, but he was just teasing everyone. Randy got 2 home runs yesterday from Justin Turner to become the first member of the Peanut and Cracker Jacks to hit 30 home runs, and he is our new leader. Go Cards stays hot, and he is now up to 28 after calling Jose Altuve. Helpless in Miami has 25 after calling your boy Albert Pujols. Smalls is up to 23, tied with me and Wonky Penguin after calling Nick Castellanos. And I wanted to give a shout out to Bambino 2525, who only started calling home runs 4 days ago and already has 2 after calling Jonathan India. And so the top of the leaderboard, Randy at 30, D. Gordon Liddy at 29, Lawnmower Man 4.4, 28, Tough Guy Joe Pisapia, who just has Bryce Harper going on auto. So 28, Go Cards at 28, Helpless Miami 25, Turf Durgeson 24. Everyone always stumbles saying Turf Durgeson to not say that backwards. Dinger Dan Harris 24, and then Wonky Penguin, me, Derek from Texas, Ak, Pygo, Smalls, and Useless Panic all at 23.
Years from now it'll be a trivia question. It was, who is the first Peanut and Cracker Jack to ever hit 30 homers in the leading off era? And Randy, you have won that honor, so congratulations on that. DFS, as Mike promised, things are updated tonight. It's a 9-game slate on Wednesday. Lots of interesting pitching options. Where do you start?
Also, another trivia question was, I think Randy was also the first person to win, not to keep promoting Dan's other podcast, but I think Randy just won, I think it was a Josh Allen jersey for the first ever giveaway for the kickoff. So big week for Randy.
What a week for Randy. Congrats, bud. Yeah.
So 9-game slate. This was kind of an interesting pitcher strategy day because a lot of the pitchers you like, but I didn't love a lot of their matchups. So one of the most expensive ones is Adam Wainwright, but he's facing the Dodgers. Staying away from him on a FanDuel because he's 10K, but on DK he's significantly cheaper. He's 8,100, so I'd be more willing to take the Adam Wainwright plunge against the Dodgers on DK. Alek Manoah is going against the Yankees. He's 9,600 on FanDuel, 8,400 on DK. Again, he's maybe someone you can use in cash on FanDuel at 9,600, but I'd rather go with him on DK for 8,400 as kind of like a GPP or a secondary arm. Shane McClanahan is a cash arm for tonight. He's going up against the Red Sox or whoever the Red Sox are rolling out there tonight. He's pretty appropriately priced, 9,300 on FanDuel, 9,700 on DK. There's a pick aside here that really favors one side more than the other, but it's Freddie Peralta of the Brewers against Kyle Gibson of the Phillies. I would probably stay away from Gibson, especially after one of his most recent starts. But Freddie Peralta is only 9,400 on FanDuel, much more expensive on DK at 10.2. And someone I'm going to use in GPP lineups for tonight is Tuki Toussaint against the Nationals. He's only 8K on FanDuel and only 7,300 on DK. So he's definitely a GPP and secondary arm that I'm targeting tonight. Yu Darvish gets the Angels, but he's a little bit more expensive when you consider how awful he's been. So he's 9,000 on FanDuel, 9,300 on DK. You can maybe gamble with him in GPP, but I'm probably just avoiding him altogether. And another one who's a cash arm is Frankie Montas against the White Sox, 9,000 on FanDuel, 9,000 on DK. And you mentioned they're a little banged up and resting guys right now, so maybe not the worst guy to target, Frankie Montas.
Yeah, I kind of like Montas there, trying to avoid Manoah against the Yankees, Wainwright against the Dodgers, even McClanahan against the Red Sox. So Montas kind of feels like that combination of ceiling and floor. And Tukey is a great one for GPPs because if people just look at his box scores, that last start came at Coors and it was terrible. So that might shy people away from Tukey. Some game stacks: the Reds against Alec Mills and the Cubs, and then the Braves against first name blank, last name Nolan, and the Nationals. Who are our lineup builders?
So some lineup builders, we have Austin Hayes going up against the Royals and Mike Minor. He's only 2,800 on FanDuel, 3,100 on DK. He's been pretty hot for the Orioles right now, so that's a pretty good price to get for him. Tyler Naquin has been hot, not as hot the last few days, but the last couple weeks he had a pretty high grade in quick grades. He gets Mills and the Cubs, 2,900 on FanDuel, 2,900 on DK, so he's cheap. Josh Harrison is going up against the White Sox and Keuchel. He's more appropriately priced and expensive on DK at 4,400, but he's just 2,900 on FanDuel. And then our old friend of the program, Bobby Dahlbeck, going up against a lefty, is just 2,500 on FanDuel, so he's free. A little bit more expensive, but still affordable on DK at 3,400. Also, Go Cards in the chat said Randy has been in the lead for a while now. No, he is not. D. Gordon Liddy was in the lead.
Yeah, that Bobby Dahlbeck price is insane, so definitely get him in there. Mike, your home run call of the night. I see it on the sheet, and I like it.
I knew you would. I put it in there because I was doing a show with you. So to stay true to the game stacks and going with the Reds and going up against Mills, I'm going with your boy, Joey Votto, who was really hot and has cooled off a little bit, but I am starting him in the playoffs, and I would like for him to get hot again.
I will go with a fellow old timer like Mike and Dan are, and I'll just use this as a reminder to make sure Evan Longoria is rostered in your league. I am going down with the ship on Evan Longoria. It should happen for him. That is going to do it for the Wednesday, September 8th edition of Leading Off. If you are upset with Mike's baseball movie rankings, especially with the egregious decision to put Cobb at number 1 overall, make sure to let him know on Twitter.
Have you seen Cobb, by the way? I don't want to interrupt. It's great. It's fantastic.
It's I'm blanking on the guy who plays him.
Tommy Lee Jones.
Okay, Tommy Lee Jones. Yes.
More of a biography than a true baseball movie, but it's really good. Cobb seemed like a horrible human being, but very entertaining movie.
I think there's a book about Cobb that I have but haven't read yet that,
it's the movie's based on. The movie is basically based on that book.
Okay. We're going to talk about this offline because I have a lot of thoughts. Okay. Make sure to yell at Mayor either way. This has been Leading Off, presented by Manscaped.